judges. In July 2019, the Brannon Center for Justice published State Supreme Court Diversity, which detailed vast racial, ethnic, and gender disparities on state high courts across the country, drawing on more than 60 years of data. This analysis updates the report with new data on the composition of state Supreme Courts as of April 6, 2021. 1. It includes more detailed demographic information and, for the first time, information about justices' professional backgrounds. The report was previously updated in February 2020. Key findings since our last update include: in 22 states, no justices publicly identify as a person of color, including in 11 states where people of color make up at least 20% of the population. There are no black justices in 28 states. There are no Latino justices in 40 states. There are no Asian American justices in 44 states. There are no Native American justices in 47 states. Across all state high courts, just 17% of justices are black, Latino, Asian, American, or Native American. By contrast, people of color make up almost 40% of the U.S. population. Women hold 39% of state Supreme Court seats. In 12 states, there is only one woman on the Supreme Court bench. Over a third, 37% of sitting judges are former prosecutors, while only 7% are former public defenders. Recent changes. Since we last collected data in February 2020, there have been personnel changes involving 46 seats on state Supreme Court benches across the country. 41 new justices have taken office, and 5 seats are currently vacant. There has been relatively little change in overall court demographics. Of the seats that have had personal changes, 13 were filled via election and 28 via appointment. 30 of the new justices are white, 17 men and 13 women, including in 17 states where people of color make up at least 20% of the population: Alaska, Arkansas, Colorado, Connecticut, Florida, Georgia, Hawaii, Illinois, Kansas, Louisiana, Michigan, Minnesota, Nevada, North Carolina, Ohio, Rhode Island, and Texas. Of the remaining seats, 4 were filled by black women, 1 by an Asian American woman, 2 by Latino women, 3 by black men, and 1 by a Latino man. Nationally, the percentage of justices of color increased by 2 points since 2019, from 15% to 17%. The percentage of female justices increased by 3 points, from 36% to 39%. Notable changes. Rhode Island. On January 11, 2021, Melissa Long was sworn in as a justice on the Rhode Island Supreme Court, becoming the state's first black justice. Prior to Long's appointment, Rhode Island never had a justice of color on its high court. Long was nominated by then Governor Gina Raimondo, the current U.S. Secretary of Commerce, and confirmed by the Rhode Island General Assembly. Previously, Long was an associate justice on the Rhode Island Superior Court from 2017 to 2020. With Long's appointment, there are now 11 states in the country that have never had a person of color on their high court and 16 that have never had a black justice. California. Martin Jenkins were confirmed to the California Supreme Court by the state's Commission on Judicial Appointments in November 2020 after being nominated by Governor Gavin Newsom. Jenkins is the state's first openly gay justice as well as its third black justice. Prior to his appointment, a black man had not served on the California Supreme Court in nearly 3 decades. Notably, Jenkins previously served as a judge on the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California from 1997 to 2008, making him the only currently sitting state Supreme Court justice to have served on a federal court. New Jersey. On September 1st, 2020, Fabiana Pierre-Louis was sworn in as a justice on the New Jersey Supreme Court, becoming the first black woman to sit on its bench. She was nominated by Governor Phil Murphy and confirmed by the New Jersey Senate. Pierre-Louis is only the third black justice in New Jersey, where 15% of the population is black. Appointed at the age of 39, she is only the youngest justice on the court. Georgia. Carla Wong McMillan was appointed by Governor Brian Kemp in March 2020 to the Georgia Supreme Court. She is the first Asian American justice to serve in any southern state. Previously, McMillan served on the Georgia Court of Appeals, where she was the first Asian American to be elected to statewide office in Georgia. Georgia is one of only 6 states that has an Asian American justice. North Carolina. Cherie Beasley, the first black woman to serve as North Carolina's Chief Justice, lost her bid for re-election in 2020 to one of her colleagues on the state Supreme Court, Paul Newby, who is white. The state now has 2 black justices, down from 3. The 5 other justices on the court identify as white. Racial, ethnic, and gender diversity. A diverse bench is vital to achieving a fair system of justice and promoting public trust in the courts. Across the country, state Supreme Courts fail to reflect an increasingly diverse population. Nearly half of all states, 22 in total, do not have a single justice who publicly identifies as a person of color, including 11 states where people of color make up at least 20% of the population. Many state Supreme Courts also have a dearth of female justices. 12 states have only 1 woman sitting on their benches, which range in size from 5 to 9 seats. As discussed in state Supreme Court diversity, today's lack of judicial diversity is driven by many factors, including a long history of racial and gender discrimination in the United States and inequities in access to law schools and the legal bar. Beyond these aggregate figures, many racial and ethnic communities are not reflected on state Supreme Court benches. There are no Latino justices in 12 states where Latino residents make up at least 10% of the population. Connecticut, Hawaii, Idaho, Illinois, Kansas, Maryland, Nebraska, Nevada, Oklahoma, Oregon, Rhode Island, and Utah. Among states where black residents make up at least 10% of the population, 8 do not have a black justice: Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, Indiana, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Tennessee. 3 of the 4 states with the largest Native American population do not have any Native American justices: Arizona, California, and Texas. Similarly, 3 of the 5 states with the largest Asian American populations do not have any Asian American justices: New Jersey, New York, and Texas. Racial and ethnic diversity on state Supreme Courts. Demographic details. States with at least 1 black justice: California, Connecticut, Delaware, Georgia, Illinois, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Minnesota, Mississippi, Missouri, New Jersey, New York, North Carolina, Ohio, Oklahoma, Oregon, Rhode Island, South Carolina, Texas, Virginia, Washington. States with at least 1 Latino justice: Arizona, California, Colorado, Florida, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, Texas, Washington. States with at least 1 Asian justice: California, Georgia, Hawaii, Iowa, Oregon, Washington. States with at least 1 Native American justice: Minnesota, Oklahoma, Washington. Diversity of professional backgrounds. Professional experience is another important dimension of a diverse bench. In terms of both legal experience and clients served, diversity can inform judges' perspectives when deciding cases and contribute to the development of the law. Indeed, for this reason, President Joe Biden has prioritized increasing professional diversity on the federal bench, where lawyers with corporate and prosecutorial backgrounds have historically been overrepresented and where former public defenders, civil rights lawyers, and legal services lawyers are rarely found. This commitment was reflected in Biden's initial judicial nominations. Until now, there had been little information about the professional backgrounds of the justices who sit on state high courts. The Brenham Center reviewed the professional background of every sitting state Supreme Court justice, categorizing their prior legal experiences. 3. The most common professional experiences for state Supreme Court justices were in private practice, 81%, another judgeship, 68%, and prosecutors' offices, 37%. In all 50 states, at least 1 justice has a background in private practice. Just 7% of justices have experience as public defenders and 2% as civil legal services attorneys. Particularly striking is the difference in representation between justices with backgrounds as former prosecutors and those who served as public defenders. Only 19 states have a former public defender on the bench, 4, whereas 43 states have at least 1 former prosecutor. 5. Indeed, public defenders' records are often grist for attack. For example, in January 2021, Republicans in the Kansas State Senate rejected a nominee for a vacancy on the state's second highest court, with some senators expressing concern with his background as a public defender. Public defenders have historically faced similar challenges when running in judicial elections. Although there are recent examples of public defenders running successful campaigns for lower court seats on a criminal justice reform platform. In New Orleans 2020 election, for example, 7 current and former public defenders ran for judicial seats on a platform of combating mass incarceration, with 2 ultimately winning their races. Even less represented on the bench are civil legal services providers who represent low-income individuals in matters such as evictions or consumer debt proceedings. Only 2% of justices have experience working in civil legal aid. Indeed, out of all the justices currently sitting on high court benches, there are more named John, 13 justices, than there are with any civil legal aid background, 7 justices. Justices' professional backgrounds also vary substantially depending on their race and ethnicity, suggesting that many justices of color take different paths to the bench than their white counterparts. For example, 84% of all white Supreme Court justices worked in private practices before reaching the bench, compared to 54% of black justices, 74% of Latino justices, 75% of Asian justices, and 25% of all Native American justices. A similar trend is reflected in the legal profession as a whole. According to a 2020 report by the American Bar Association, mid-career, white lawyers are more likely to be found in law firms, 40%, than mid-career lawyers who are Latino, 34%, Asian American, 30%, Black, 24%, or Native American, 20%. By contrast, white justices are less likely than justices of color to have served as prosecutors. 34% of white Supreme Court justices were prosecutors before reaching the bench, compared to 46% of black justices, 53% of Latino justices, and 38% of Asian justices. Among the 4 Native American justices, 2 served as a prosecutor. These figures are out of step with the demographics of prosecutors across the country. As of 2019, 95% of prosecutors in the United States were white, and 75% were white men.